Hello, chaps. I'm Will from Tested.
And I'm just Norm from Tested. Nothing fancy today except the Surface Pro 3.
Before we go into this, I want to explain to people at home that might feel like they need to comment that the way we do this kind of product coverage is that the person who hasn't tested the product asks questions of the person who has tested the product. So I may ask questions that seem to exhibit some sort of perceived bias, something like that, against this product. I don't hate this product. I don't even dislike this product. I haven't used this product at all. I'm asking questions to get the truth about the product out of Norman Chan.
That's really all we want in the world is the truth. So I've been using the Surface Pro 3 for about a month now.
Okay.
This is not it what I had. I wanted to bring out the original Surface Pro.
That's the x86.
Yep.
First generation Surface. It was Sandy Bridge, I think.
If that. Ivy Bridge or Sandy Bridge. Sandy Bridge. And when Microsoft released this, it released this alongside another Surface, the Surface RT. It was along the Windows 8 launch. This feels like a brick right now.
That was actually an okay laptop with kind of a bad keyboard and a neat touchscreen that you could use for not very much at the time.
Absolutely.
But that kind of more developed over the life of the product.
Yeah, and we never got the Surface Pro 2 into review, so all we had was the Surface Pro. The problems with the Surface Pro and the Surface Pro 2 are very similar. This keyboard, the touch cover design made it very difficult to have this sit in your lap because the top part is very heavy. When you compare it to something, and again, this isn't biased, this is just what we have on hand. A traditional laptop, like the MacBook Air, the weight is on the bottom. So you can actually rest in your lap, the screen pops up, and you can actually hold it just from the keys on the bottom and carry it around.
Because the center of gravity is low, when you have it opened up, then the top doesn't wobble. This is the same as every laptop ever made.
Right.
Except for this one.
With the Surface, you can't hold it from the keys.
No.
What you do is you hold it like that, or you flip your cover all the way around if you want to show people. You show them that. And it was a full-blown laptop. However, Microsoft wants to build this as your tablet laptop hybrid, replacement, whatever. It was a laptop.
The software for the tablet side was inadequate at best. But the laptop, it was okay. It was fine. This is the first generation one, so the kickstand only comes out one level. The second generation, they added an additional level of kickstand, so it would tilt a little more flat, so you could kind of put it on your lap. The trackpad and the touch keyboard and the type keyboard, all of the keyboard options were actually better on the second one. I still didn't think they were very good.
No, and this example is the type cover on the first one. Very small trackpad, kind of this matte surface right here. The type
It was
cover,
an unresponsive trackpad. It was a larger issue than the size.
And the type cover was much better than the touch cover, but still relatively thick.
If you weren't typing on a flat surface with the type covers, then you would miss key presses, which is, you know, if you have a keyboard, you want the keyboard to work. Now,
one last thing, it did have a digitizer.
The Stylus.
The Stylus, it was used Wacom technology, and it kind of magnetized right there where the charging port is, and sticks right here. I thought it would have been better if it was docked in a sleeve or something. But
fair enough.
Goodbye, old Surface from 2 years ago,
Never
and the
about
design
that again.
of this from last year.
Throw it in the trash.
Into the closet.
This one looks flatter and wider.
This is the Surface Pro 3.
Blue.
We have this unit we borrowed from our friends at Arts Technica because they gave everyone one of these who attended their announcement event. And I've been using it for a month now. This is the i5 version. It's very important to note. I know that Microsoft has said a lot about how cheap the Surface Pro 3 is, and the i3 version is under $1,000 just for the laptop. But the one they gave everyone out is the mid-range, mid to high-range i5 version.
So comparable to an Ultrabook, basically?
Very comparable. It's almost exactly like an Ultrabook. Before we talk
Do people
about...
still even talk about Ultrabooks? Is that still a thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Ultrabooks are fantastic. All the Haswell processors, those are all Ultrabook class. As we showed with the past Surface, the Surface 1, this also is a kickstand. And this kickstand doesn't just flip out to this 22 degrees, it is all the way. So...
Wow. It goes all the way flat. Now this is almost like an easel. This is, for a product, if you want to draw, that kind of slight angle up that you would have at, say, a drafting table or something like that, seems really good. That angle, not so much.
Not so much, but if I tilt this down, all the way down, and I'm actually going to remove the keyboard. We'll talk about that in just a second.
Did it just switch from the desktop to the start menu?
I hit the button.
Took the keyboard off? Okay.
It goes all the way down, and this looks very much like an easel. We've tested laptops like the Lenovo's Yoga that can kind of fold in this position.
Variable angles, yeah.
Yeah, and the way the Lenovo Yoga does it is that the keyboard flips around and becomes the kickstand, but the hinge still isn't rigid enough where that if you were tapping the screen, it would bounce.
So does this bounce?
This doesn't bounce. So this is
nice.
at its lowest angle, and I can browse, and it's a firm, it's a firm surface right now. Like if you push, I'm not going to push hard because I don't want to break it. There is a little bit of give, but for normal web browsing, and if I'm just tapping stuff, like that's
good.
tapping.
So what's the browser situation like on Windows 8.1?
I mean, I use the default. I use the desktop because I've been using this primarily as a laptop.
Okay.
But let's talk about this hardware. So on the inside, like you said, it's an Ultrabook. It's a Core i5. It's actually the exact same Core i5 that was in the Surface Pro 2 reboot.
Wait, did they ship the same hardware 2 years in a row with different
Well, they
cases?
upgraded the Surface Pro 2 2 months after they released it. They upgraded the hardware. There was an Intel 4200U processor in the first Surface Pro 2. When 2 months later, everyone ordered it, got the free upgrade to the what they paid for.
So
they refreshed the hardware
before they shipped it. So if you
shipped it.
So they sent a new one out to everyone?
No, but if you sent yours to refurb and got it back, you got the new one.
So you had to go out and work the system a little bit.
You had to work the system.
Why would they ship a product when there's a new CPU coming 2 months down the line? Those roadmaps are set years in advance.
It's their deals, whatever they could get with Intel. So it's a 4300U processor, which is a mid-range Core i5. It's built-in graphics. It's Intel's 4400 series GPU. There's an i7 version, which has the Intel 5000 graphics. You're not going to be playing games on this. We've done tons of games testing on older laptops, older Ultrabooks, the MacBook Airs included, and you could play, Team Fortress 2. You can play your StarCraft with some settings depending on what resolution.
I played stuff like South Park: The Stick of Truth on the new machine which is essentially the same integrated graphics,
but like not a dedicated gaming machine. You're not buying this for gaming. So it's productivity machine. Absolutely. Yeah. This one comes with 8 gigs of RAM. The standard one's 4 gigs. And this model also has 256 gigs of solid state. It's a Samsung 840 EVO M2 type storage, not
so
PCI
it's the slot, not a... the early knock against the first couple of Surfaces were that you would buy a 64 gig model and you'd have like 16 gigs or 22 gigs of storage available. How much does this have available out of the box on the 256 gig model? How much
out of the box, it's a little over 200 gigs.
Okay,
so if I were to get one model right now, and we'll talk about recommendations at the very end, I think 256 gigs is the bare minimum. And a lot of that is because this only has one USB port for your expansion. Now there is your micro SD slot. Right there.
It does have a micro SD slot. That's good.
But it's only the one USB. I know most people, when you external storage, it is with USB.
What's that big flat thing? Is that an SD card?
That's the charger.
Oh, that's the charger. Okay.
So hardware, that's the internal hardware. I'm going to give you some miscellaneous hardware specs right here to show you the volume button is right here. There's the power button on top. It's a display port right here. You can daisy chain up to 2 displays with an adapter. Output up to 2800 resolution. One USB 3 here. This is a new power connector, so you can't actually use your old Surface Pro power connectors.
Your old power bricks don't work?
Nope. And this is the new power brick. It's 2-prong, which is fine. This connects, and there's a light here that lets you know whether you're charging or not. And also, it does, what I really like is that there is a USB connector here for power.
It's only power, though. It's not a data connection?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, and I wish other power bricks had this as well.
Yeah, that's why would you not have that?
Yeah,
it's a brilliant idea.
If I have this in the bag and I have this, then I can use this to charge my phone.
Will it charge your iPhone or iPad or whatever?
Absolutely. Or your Windows phone if you're into that as well.
I'm sure people are.
I'm manipulating this pretty briskly because it's light. So it's compared to, and I said we never come back to this again, compared to this old thing.
Take the keyboard off.
Compared to this old thing, this is very light.
Can I hold?
You may hold.
Oh my God! It's not that much lighter. It is noticeably lighter, but it's not a revelation. But what you do notice is that it's a lot bigger.
Yeah. So this is a 12-inch screen, which is an interesting size because when you think of laptops, a lot of people think of 13-inch laptops.
It's like it goes from like 10 or 11 to 13, basically, right?
I think the 12-inch size is actually really good, but more interesting is the aspect ratio. This is a 3:2 display as opposed to a 16:9, which
So like
actually.
the iPad? No.
I'm not sure if the iPad is 4:3.
The iPad's 4:3, yeah.
This is 3:2. The resolution is 2560 by 1440. It's a high resolution display.
You have that set to a like normal DPI, which is terrifyingly small for my old eyes.
I love this. 100% DPI. Windows is not without its DPI scaling problems. If you go into your display settings, then the default is 150%, but then text looks a little dithered. And Windows isn't smart enough. Chrome isn't smart enough. The applications aren't smart enough where that it can recognize the UI, the buttons that are tough to tap. For example, my shortcuts here, if I wanted to click a website like Boing Boing, that was a tough tap to reach that. If I wanted to expand that but still have my window rendered at 100%, Chrome isn't smart enough to do that right
whereas
now.
on OS X, when you're running a Retina screen on one of the Retina Mac Pros, it renders the window Chrome at basically quad resolution, so at 200% scaling, I guess. And the canvas that's painted inside like your browser window is rendered at the higher DPI, right?
Now and this is just it's still touchscreen. So you have all the windows, your multitasking.
Can you browse with desktop
charms.
Chrome in the touchscreen? Like,
absolutely.
This is how
I
you
browse.
use it?
This is how I use it. I use it primarily, only in the desktop.
Because one of the problems I had with the earlier versions of the Surface was that the browsers on the Metro side, the modern UI side, were universally pretty bad. But I had a problem with both performance and like the DPI of the screen, being able to use it as a touch screen on the desktop side. So it's interesting to hear that's better now.
So this is, of course, you can always jump into the modern UI style. I did not use this. I use it very infrequently.
I mean, I know you said that the Mail app is better this go round than it was prior to 8.1, but it's still not something you'd use on like you're using what, Gmail in the web browser?
Gmail and Chrome. I'm using this almost exclusively as a laptop, not as a tablet.
Okay.
But as I've said before, touch on a laptop is a great complement to a keyboard and mouse. So that's the other thing, the keyboard and mouse
I was going to say that if this is priced like a laptop and I'm spending laptop money on it, because what's the price on the i5 version of this?
This is $1,299, so $1,300.
That's a lot of money.
And with tax and plus buying this new type cover.
Wait, that doesn't come with it?
Nope. This is $130. You're basically spending $1,500 and change.
That's an expensive laptop.
It is.
I mean, at least the resolution and stuff are on par with what I would expect with a $1,500 laptop, though.
And it's also touchscreen, which you don't get on Apple laptops.
Right.
So a new type cover, you can't use your old type covers. There is no touch cover for the Surface Pro 3. And it is much improved. So the biggest way it's improved is the way it adheres to the screen. As I showed you earlier with the Surface Pro 1, the connection is very tenuous with this one strip. They added a second magnetic strip here, so it actually...
You mean it was wobbly, like you couldn't hold the base? Yeah.
This pops up now, and having that second level of connectivity makes this hinge that much more firm.
But you still can't hold it just by the keyboard.
No, you can't. I mean, this still flops out, and you still need to use the kickstand, which I'll pop open right now to a comfortable angle.
How does it? So it's interesting. Right now, with the fold up on the keyboard is off the surface that you're typing on, which previously would have caused registration problems. Like this gap here between the keyboard and the table would have caused registration problems with that type keyboard.
Yeah.
At least the way I type.
The old keyboard. The keyboard's flat. You can see it's flush to the table.
And that's when it works best, when it's resting on the table.
And not when it's on your lap, unfortunately. But this keyboard actually is at an angle, popped up, and it's really good. You can type, the keyboard has better throw in the keys, they're less mushy, and you can actually type for extended period of times. I would still say that this is still inferior to any Lenovo keyboard. Any
real laptop keyboard.
Any MacBook keyboard, this is still inferior to, and the touchpad is inferior to most trackpads. It's a little bigger, the texture is a little different. It's clicky, it's multi-touch. I'm gonna show you. It's multi-touch. You can actually still do your charms and your multitasking on the side, but when I'm using this, I'm plugging a mouse into that USB port or into a USB hub, and I'm using a mouse and this keyboard.
So I mean, I was going to say, one of the things I found when I'm using a laptop with a good trackpad, whether it's a MacBook or a Lenovo or whatever, you can actually do things like do light Photoshop editing and stuff like that with the trackpad. Was that something you would skip here?
I would not. I could do light Photoshop editing in terms of cropping, but I would not do precision.
You wouldn't try to do like a clipping path or something like that?
Not at all.
Okay.
And Photoshop's a great example.
Of course, with the touch screen and the stylus, you could just use the stylus to do the clipping path.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm launching Photoshop CC right now, which is one of the applications they demoed at the announcement of this. And if you notice, the UI for Photoshop is actually much larger than the UI for something like Chrome. And I'll even launch Lightroom to show you the difference. And that's because Photoshop has an experimental mode that I've enabled that's made for high DPI surfaces. And so in Photoshop, I'm gonna...
High DPI surfaces meaning?
High DPI screens.
Screens, okay.
Yeah. So this UI is actually 200% size. What normally is, I'll disable it right now to show you a difference.
So this is basically what OS X does with apps that support the Retina as well.
What I don't like though is it's fixed at 200.
Oh, so you can't adjust it?
Yeah.
Is it fixed at 200 because of the screen you have?
No, that's
like it's just what it does.
They're experimental features, and I know. Hold on. I know that.
Why aren't you just using the pen, Norm?
There was an error there. Okay. Experimental features, it's scale UI 200% for high density displays. I wish there was an option to scale just the UI to 150.
I mean, that's something I would probably use on my 2560 by 1600 monitor at home, frankly.
Yeah, and it's still better than the 100% scaling for Photoshop UI, and it lets me tap with my finger. So I wanted to, for example, open something. I can actually use my finger, no problem. I'm going to open this image. And then another experimental feature is touch support. So there is touch support. It's
that's wonderful.
Not nearly as responsive as on a web browser, but you do the rotation, and touch rotation in Photoshop is pretty powerful.
Do you think that's a function of GPU performance?
I think it's Photoshop.
You think it's Photoshop?
I think Photoshop has a lot of overhead. And I mean, GPU performance will help, and it is tapping into some of that.
It's probably experimental for a reason.
Yes, but this is still better than nothing. So those are two Photoshop exclusive features. Like I said,
and does it support like multi? How does it support the stylus? Does it do like pressure sensitivity and erasing and stuff like that?
So I will zoom in, and if I have the stylus, which we haven't talked about, so this is a good time to talk about the stylus. This is the stylus.
There are many like it, but that one's yours.
Oh, this is absolutely. It comes with the Surface. There's a little sleeve here that it snaps into. It doesn't magnetize, doesn't take up the charging port on the Surface Pro 3.
There's still no slot for it. I mean, that's weird. It's weird that you have to buy the accessory to have the sleeve to put the stylus in.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine you would... I don't understand why they sell this without the keyboard, frankly. So I can't imagine anybody's going to buy this without buying the keyboard. But
so they can sell for $800 for the base model, but it's really $1,000. There are two buttons in OneNote. One button to select things, one button to delete things, eraser, or a right mouse button. And then there's also a button on the back, because it's actually powered by two small watch batteries in there, while there's a AAA battery in here. I can
so it's an active stylus.
Yep, it's Bluetooth connected.
Okay. And
there's pressure sensitivity. So there's two batteries in there, and there's actually a battery up there that you can get into as well. I haven't had to replace the batteries at all.
So previously the screen was a Wacom digitizer that used passive styli. Is this isn't using a Wacom digitizer?
No, it's using one from N-Trig, and the N-Trig pressure sensitivity is 256 degrees. The reason they did that was to reduce some of the levels of bonding for the screen. I'm not an artist, so it didn't affect me at all. The pressure sensitivity is still wonderful. You can't write at a dramatic angle like you can on the Cintiq, so you can only do that with the Cintiq for your shading. But if I wanted to, for example, in this picture of R2, point at stuff, I can, and that was it's a heavier stroke right there, and it's a lighter stroke right there. So pressure sensitivity is absolutely working, and I can draw in Photoshop.
You're outlining R2. Did you find, like, I know you said you're not an artist, but you didn't notice a difference? Did it have other people? Has anybody else who is an artist written about this?
So Penny Arcade's Gabe has written about this, and he thinks the pressure sensitivity is fine. His big complaint is the lag that he feels.
You mean the lag between when he makes a mark on the screen and when it shows up?
And he was using a Core i5 version. He thought that would be improved for the GPU, the faster GPU in the i7, but we don't know if that's the case yet. The other big complaint he had was that this button on the side, this Windows button, he would tap that accidentally.
Like brush I can see how you brush it with your hand.
And brush it with your hand, and suddenly you'd be in Metro.
Previously, the home button was on the long side of the screen.
Yeah,
right?
on the bottom.
Yeah.
They obviously had to move that because of the keyboard attachment. I haven't had a problem brushing into this because I don't draw like that. And I guess if you're left-handed, it's less of a problem for you. But Microsoft said, as of a month and a half ago, that they would issue a fix so that when the pen was activating the screen, this would deactivate, and they have yet to issue
just a software change.
That software update. Okay. But this is Photoshop. The pen works. It comes with another application that some drawing programs, so you can try your brush work. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not an artist. I can't speak to how effective this is as an artist device compared to a Wacom tablet.
Or previous versions of the Surface.
Or previous versions of the Surface. So that's Photoshop.
Okay.
The other cool thing you can do with the pen is OneNote. And this is where I really, really like this device. Well, I've said before that a touchscreen is really useful on a laptop for web browsing. So if I have a mouse plugged in, I'm doing my normal typing browsing, and I'm pinching to zoom in on a window on a web browser is how I browse the web these days. That's how I identify text. What you also
can you double tap to zoom in on the desktop browser, or no? It doesn't know what to do with that, right?
No. What you can also do is activate OneNote with this button. It's this purple button right here, and one click with it will open a new document. And actually, I had OneNote open already. So
is that a configurable set? Like if I'm an Evernote user, can I make Evernote respond to that one click?
I don't
or is that
think
hard
you
to put
can.
it in the OS?
I'm not exactly sure, but this actually works if you have it removed, detached, and shut off as well. So the use case is if this is in sleep mode, not 100% off, but I can hit the button, and OneNote will pop up, and I can take my notes.
So what are you logged in at this point?
I'm not. So there's an unlock button right there.
So it basically works like the camera roll on a mobile OS or something like that.
And having tested Styli on things like the iPad and Adobe's pen, this is the best tablet with a pen combination I've used in a modern Windows computer.
Like for note taking?
For actual note taking.
I mean, the size of the screen and the aspect ratio look like a legal pad, which is
it's not really exactly the same, but that 12-inch size is, I mean, it's heavy. It's almost 2 pounds, 1.8 pounds. So when I'm taking notes, I'm actually holding it like that. But I have gone through meetings where I've been walking around and actually taking notes, writing down. You can actually change your paper. So I'm going to unlock this. And so you can just tap to unlock, and you open up your OneNote, and then you can swipe from the bottom, and you can change to grid lines. And I don't know if you guys actually can't see that. There it goes, a little bit of grid lines. Or you can show rule lines. I like showing grid lines. And you can actually do your notes. You can underline things, you can write, and then...
Do you find that you need to zoom it?
You can't zoom, you can scroll.
Okay, so it's endless scrolling?
It's endless scrolling.
So you're still going to be writing probably bigger than you would on a normal piece of paper, but at least you have infinite, you don't have to make new pages.
I'll show you an example. I took notes when we took an NVIDIA meeting, and these were my notes.
That's not bad.
And I was able to...
None of that stuff's embargoed, right?
No, this is all out, and I was able to do my, as if I was writing on field notes, underline things, circle things.
You could do diagrams if you needed to.
You could do diagrams, and what's cool is if I wanted to erase something, so if I, for example, drew that, I can hit one of the button, and there it goes, and that erases it.
Just erases the whole
because they're all vectors.
Huh.
The other thing you can do is you can hit this other button, and you can draw around it, and because it's a vector, you can actually scale that and move that around.
Oh, that's neat. So,
so if you do drawings,
does the Stylus work with other stuff like? I mean, a lot of people use Evernote. It's a super popular app. Will it work with other stuff other than like Photoshop and? Yeah. It just shows up as a normal stylus for Windows.
Yep, and I really have come to like OneNote. There are apps for Windows Phone, obviously, Android, and iOS, and just whatever you use can sync up. So I'm going to give you a cool demo. I know this is a demo they actually showed they showed at the launch event, but this I think is the most impressive demo. And I've actually used the device like this before. So for example, if I'm browsing the web and I have to, let's see if I can get this to reorient.
Why is it not just turning automatically?
There it is. It's still a silly animation. And I think, oh, that is a cool map of the US, or...
You mean the where Americans smoke marijuana the most map,
yes,
Norm?
I want to share this image.
Share that with your dope smoking
with my
friends,
friends.
Norm.
So double tap. And what will happen is actually take a screenshot. So this is now a screen grab, as if it's the Snip app. And I can draw a box around what I want to select.
This is the part you're interested in?
And that is absolutely the part I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So now I can actually get in here and diagram.
It's only 342, Norm. Be careful.
And I can say, or underline United States.
Right.
Or we are there.
Yeah, we're in a dark green. Interesting. Yeah, you would think Florida with all the glaucoma, people would be all about the marijuana smoking. And what can you do with this? Is this just a JPEG or something?
You can
email
share
this to friends?
Yep, you can absolutely share it. You have to actually use the charms. So.
Oh, really?
Share.
Is this? Hold on. Wait. Is this a? Did you sneak me into a Metro app?
A Metro app demo, even.
Oh.
I'm not gonna actually email that to you right now, but it saves that as a JPEG, and I've actually used this numerous times. It's like clipping.
Yeah.
It's really useful for web development, for calling out bugs in web pages.
Here's a thing over another thing, whatever.
UI development, and I really like this.
It's a really neat feature. I'm bummed that it's only limited to this device and not to every Windows device because,
you need the pen. You need the digitizer, you need the screen, you need the pen. But I also use this as a laptop. And so my big test for this, I brought this to Comic-Con, was to use this as my image editor, photo editor at Comic-Con.
That looks like people in costume.
And this is my Lightroom library. And it performs as well as my MacBook Air, for example, with the same processor.
So 11-inch MacBook Air from last year, right?
But, of course, this has a much higher resolution screen, and that made editing photos that much better. And I gotta say...
This is even without Lightroom knowing what to do with the window Chrome.
Like this UI right now is super small, so small, unbearably small. But if I opened, for example, some photos I have queued up as my demo. Here's a photo I edited here. It looks fantastic. This being 2560 by 1440, and the screen on this, DisplayMate has done many tests comparing this to other laptop screens, and they've said this and tablet screens at Surface Pro 3 has just it's a great screen.
They did a good job.
Box.
Yeah.
I love photo editing with this. The real test also came with exporting, writing to disk. So I had 800 photos from Comic-Con and exporting. I ran an export
They're
on
15 megs each, probably 20 megs each.
About 20 megs each because they're raw files. Exporting on both this computer and my MacBook Air. It was much faster initially on the Surface, but once it got to like the 600th photo, it started chugging, and the fan started spinning up, and it started getting really hot. And that's something other people have noticed, is that the thermal design of this, one of the ways Microsoft was able to design this to be less than a centimeter thick, 9.1 millimeters thick, was to just expand the thermal threshold for how hot this thing can get. It's a 15-watt processor. There is an active fan inside, like
you can see the vents on the top and on the side.
This is a venting system right here, right there. It's a very fast performer, but if you're going to do something like export a video, for example, or crunch a video, that's for half an hour.
This isn't a video editing workstation.
It will get bogged down.
Okay.
And so I did have to cancel it. And but if you're doing just basic photo editing, it's fantastic.
So I mean that's a special use case, but I could see if they're it seems like they're still kind of marketing this toward people who are creators, and exporting a couple hundred raw images isn't an unusual workflow.
No,
so
it's not.
Something I would expect
Absolutely
to
not.
work.
Yeah, and it does work. It just it's a little slow, and it gets loud. I mean, a lot of laptops do get loud and get warm, and this is no different. You have to treat this like a laptop.
I assume the same thing happens when you start playing video games?
Yeah, its fan spins up and it gets really warm. I also plug this into an external monitor and use this kind of like as a workstation. Microsoft does sell a new dock that you can use with this.
Does the dock have a special connector, or do you just plug in DisplayPort and USB?
You just plug in DisplayPort. Power DisplayPort USB.
Okay.
It locks in. And using this as a dedicated system, it's fine. I think it's too expensive to use as a dedicated system if you're using it just as a system to plug a monitor into. The people who are buying this are buying it because it has this nice display, because you're actually interacting with the screen directly.
I don't understand the one USB port. That's the thing that kills me.
I think it's a function of the design and the motherboard.
I get that it's small, but I can't imagine buying a laptop. I mean, I had a hard time buying a laptop with 2 USB ports. I thought that wasn't enough. So one seems like, when you're talking about a world where you may have to use a USB Ethernet adapter at some point, or USB external storage, that seems like a big oversight. Did you test the micro SD card for writing and storage and stuff like that?
No, micro SD card in the past for the Surface 2 RT, which also had that. I use that for media storage, but I would not use that as a work disk.
It's not for stuff you need to write to. It's only for stuff that you read from music,
regularly.
Videos, whatever.
Yep. But it does support high capacity micro SD cards.
Okay. How's battery norm? Yeah.
So doing something like streaming a video, an HD video, you get in
Netflix,
my test,
perhaps?
Netflix, YouTube, 6 hours.
That's
which
pretty
I think
good.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
If you're doing web browsing and you have your Photoshop in your Lightroom turned off, 8 hours, 8.5 hours is what I got with this, which is not bad. It's a 42 watt-hour battery, which is the same capacity as the previous Surfaces. It's not what Apple claims. Their laptops get 12 hours or so. But in my experience, I have a MacBook Air. It was maybe 10 hours when I first got it. Now it's much less than that.
Okay.
So
normal battery degradation.
Absolutely.
Right. Is the battery replaceable in this? I know iFixit did a teardown.
Batteries, not only is the battery not replaceable, it's very difficult to repair in general. This is not a system, because of the way it's designed.
Is it glued shut?
It is basically, you let Microsoft repair this. I would not want to repair this on my own, just because of the way that they've designed the thermals and all the chassis and how packed everything is together. The nice thing, though, is that because it looks like a tablet, and because Microsoft is selling it as basically they're calling it a tablet that can replace a laptop, the TSA actually treats this as a tablet, and you can actually use this during takeoff and landings.
Oh, that's interesting. So not only do you not have to take it out of your bag when you go through security, but it is. I assume if you put the keyboard on, the flight attendants are going to yell at you.
Well, they'll be because
you'll have to have the tray down or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But that's interesting, and that is actually a differentiator.
The keyboard is essential, and even though I like using the Surface Pro 3 without the keyboard and just using the pen and OneNote, I never found myself separating it from the keyboard. In the bag, this is how it lives in the bag. When I take it out to take notes, I don't go, okay, I'm going to leave this in the bag.
You just fold the keyboard back?
I just fold the keyboard back, which also means that when you say how thick it is and how heavy it is, you really have to factor in the keyboard at all times. And the keyboard is considerably thick and does add enough weight to push it over 2 pounds.
It's unfortunate they didn't use some of the additional bulk in that keyboard to add a little bit more battery or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I think they will eventually, and I think they do have an accessory or are coming out.
They have a battery. Yes. They had a battery accessory for one of the previous Surfaces, but I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
I really like the new screen. The big screen, the taller 16:9 screens never made much sense to me on tablets. At least on the greater than 10 inches side, but this is a compelling size. This looks good.
It's a beautiful screen. I wish that more programs were smart enough, Photoshop included, to resolve the differences between UI and content. I really don't like using this in 200% scaling mode, Windows 200% mode, or
well, then you're just wasting the screen.
You're wasting the screen. Even at 150, I think it's a waste of the screen because I'm using this as a laptop. I think it's expensive when you consider all the components. I wouldn't want to get this with 4 gigs of RAM. I wouldn't want to get it with 128 gigs, maybe, but I don't think you're taking it seriously unless you have 256 gigs.
If you're doing any kind of photo editing, any kind of video editing, any kind of, you travel and have movies, HD movies on your laptop because you want to watch stuff on the plane, 128 gigs runs out really, really fast
Yeah.
when you're looking at 40 gigs for the OS.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy this because it's not upgradable. I would not buy the i3 version. If I was to buy this, it would be the i5 version of this one. It would be the $1,500 with the type cover. But because of the way it slows down after extended use,
What's extended use? 20 minutes?
I would say 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, 4 hours of computing.
But if
20
you're
hour,
doing- if
20
you're-
half an hour of processing.
like a big CPU task,
Yeah.
20, 30 minutes in, it starts to
Yes.
slow down.
Yeah.
And how much does it slow? Does it slow down 50%? Does it slow down 10%? Or does it just...
It just feels a little slower. It
just gets chuggy.
It's not in the benchmarks. It's in how responsive things in terms of how fast files start to load, and I mean the touchscreen is still responsive, but it just gets loud and it feels like it's being taxed.
Does that happen on battery and on power when you're plugged in too?
Happens on both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but even on when you're plugged in, it still happens. And I use this primarily plugged in.
So the last thing is about the keyboard. Like how, if you're find yourself frequently sitting in an airport with a laptop on your lap, banging out emails as you're waiting to get on a plane, is this a device for you, or are you always going to be looking for a table when you need to sit down and use the keyboard?
You can absolutely use this on your lap, but you won't be able to shift your legs around.
Okay.
As you're typing.
You can't cross your leg and have one
No,
propped up or
you
whatever.
absolutely, and I know a lot of people do cross their legs and have the 11-inch MacBook Air and type. You can't do this with. You need to make your legs a flat, your knees a flat surface, your thighs a flat surface.
But the keyboard, much improved? Is it? Would you use that without an external keyboard, or are you always going to plug in an external keyboard if you need to do?
I would use this without an external keyboard. I would not use this without an external mouse.
Okay.
Yeah, I think and what I found that even when in cases I don't have a mouse, I'm using this instead of.
So you're going
trackpad.
Stylus instead of mouse instead of trackpad.
Yeah, to tap icons.
Yeah, the trackpad. You got to get the trackpad right.
Yep. So, it's really close.
$1,500 is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but I think it's a dramatic improvement over the design in the Surface Pro 1 and 2.
Even with the reduced touchscreen and stylus pressure sensitivity and that stuff.
I think that majority of people who buy this are going to be happy with it, and it's going to be fringe cases, and it's not going to get anyone to switch, I think, from MacBooks, but I would strongly consider this over, for example, the Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro.
Okay, sounds good. So that's the Surface Pro 3, is that right? Or is it just the Surface 3?
Surface Pro 3.
Surface Pro 3. We'll be back with more on Tested soon. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.